Good evening. My name is David Okun. Welcome to my channel. Talking about the cost of living. I'm talking about militarism. In terms of the cost of living, I've been looking at the military outfit in Russia called the Wagner Group. Please watch, if you're watching this video, watch other videos. They are connected. They are fairly elaborate in terms of looking at the Wagner Group. The reason I chose to look at the Wagner Group was because the Wagner Group is involved mainly in the war in Ukraine, and it's Russian. It's a private army. It's a mercenary, and I've been giving a lot of information on the Wagner Group. Leave a comment below what you think about the Wagner Group, what you think of militarism as part of the cost of living. And I've already said of the cost of living that if you want to solve a problem, find the source of the cause of the problem, and then you can have a solution to it. And I'm saying that capitalism is a political system is responsible for the Wagner Group, because the Wagner Group is a private company, a military private company, and if it wasn't for capitalism, it wouldn't exist. Like in many situations, capitalistic. And I've also looked at capitalism in the past as being responsible for the cost of living, because the cost of living is an income issue. So I will be making this connection consistently so that people who watch this video, if you value this video, actually subscribe to the channel and share with your family and friends, and leave a comment below. Click like if you like it. And what I'm trying to say is that I'm trying to explain that information is really a process of trying to understand the context of the cost of living, which I believe is going to be going on for maybe the rest of this year, and perhaps also next year, as a social crisis, as a financial problem. I've said quite a bit about the the sense of the cost of living, and I'll be concentrating more about the militarism, looking at the Wagner Group to illustrate the incident of militarism as being the cause of the cost of living, has happened in Russia, has happened around the world. We're looking at it, the Wagner Group's activity across the globe. We are now looking at Belarus. If you know anything about Belarus, please, possible activities in Belarus by the Wagner Group. If you know anything about Belarus, leave a comment below. And in July 2020, ahead of the country's presidential election, Belarusian law enforcement agencies arrested 33 Wagner contractors. Now, there's something about the Wagner Group. Wherever there is election, the Russians are there in the form and body of the Wagner Group, and it's a characteristical conduct. So in Belarus in 2020, 2 years ago, ahead of the country's presidential election, the Belarusian law enforcement agencies arrested 33 Wagner contractors. The Wagner contractors are always where there is election or political unrest like a civil war. The arrest took place after the security agency received information about over 200 PMCs arriving in the countries to destabilize the situation during an election campaign, according to the state-owned Belarusian telegraph agency BelTA. Like I said, there's a characteristics of the Wagner Group actually monitoring election around the regions of interest, and are going there to sabotage the election, such as occurred in the Belarusia. In this example, the Belarusian Security Council accused those arrested of preparing a terrorist attack. These are the Wagner Group being suspected or even arrested or even accused of terrorism in Belarusia. The US-funded Radio Liberty reported the contractors were possibly on their way to Sudan, citing video footage that showed Sudanese currency and a telephone card depicting Kasala's Kadmia Mosque among the belongings of those who had been arrested. Probably they, excuse me, they were en route to Sudan, where they operate in Africa. Sudan is in North Africa, and probably on their way there, they wanted to do a quick one in Belarusia. And others also believe the contractors were simply using Belarus as a staging post on their way to or from their latest assignment, possibly in Africa, with BBC News pointing out the footage of the Sudanese currency and the Sudanese phone card as well. So the Wagner Group is very busy around the world with Russia. When you hear the Wagner Group, you also hear in Russia, because Wagner Group is Russia, and Russia is Wagner Group. So Russia confirmed the men were employed by a private security firm, but stated they had stayed in Belarus after missing their connecting flight to Turkey and called for their swift release. So the Russia as a country is defending what is actually the Wagner Group being arrested in Belarusia and demanding for their release. The aid of the Belarusian investigation group asserted the contractors had no plans to fly further to Turkey and that they were giving contradictory accounts. And the PMCs stated they were on their way to Venezuela, Turkey, Cuba, and Syria. So they actually denied they were actually going to Belarusia. They were saying they were going somewhere else. They were just passing by. Belarusian authorities also said they believe the husband of opposition the presidential candidate Vyatlana Sikhanouskaya may have ties to the detained men and launch a criminal case against him. So it appears to me that the opposition presidential candidate of Belarusia implicitly is connected to the Wagner Group. And during election, it probably, if that is true, then it's not accidental that the Wagner Group is there being accused of terrorist activity to try and dislodge the election. Perhaps also a suspected military coup in Belarusia, which is actually, from the information contained in the other videos, you will find that it's consistent with the behavior and the custom of the Wagner Group. The detained contractors were returned to Russia 2 weeks later. So they were released by the Belarus state. During the contractors' detention, Russian media reported that the security services of Ukraine had lured the PMCs to Belarus under the pretext of a contract for the protection of Rosneft facilities in Venezuela. The truth is out there. The Russia is accusing Ukraine. Whether it is true or not, Russia is actually defending the Wagner Group. And elsewhere, the Russia denied close connection with the Wagner Group, because this Wagner Group is supposed to be a private army. And private militarism is supposed to be illegal in Russia, but for some reason The Russian authority allowed the Wagner Group to operate above the law. Later, Russian President Putin also stated that the detained men were victims of joint Ukrainian United States intelligence operation. It seems to me that the Russian military also interchangeably operate within the Wagner Group. The Russian military system and resources is actually public sector, state-based facilities, and it appears from this information that they also, although they are state military, they also operate under the flag of the Wagner Group. Although the Ukrainian president's chief of staff, Andriy Yermak, denied involvement in the detentions, subsequently a number of Ukrainian journalists, members of parliament, and politicians confirmed the operation. It appears that the Ukrainians are probably also indirectly might be involved, in the sense that the way states operate can be really shrouded in mystery. Excuse me. Bear with me. So the operation was supposedly planned for a year as Ukraine identified PMCs who fought in eastern Ukraine and were involved in the July 2014 shoot-down of Malaysia Airlines Flight 17. So there's a lot of violence and sabotaging and accusation and counter-accusation involving this PAC. Malaysia is actually in Asia, and the operation failed after being postponed by the office of the president of Ukraine, which was reportedly informed of it, only in its final stage. Ukrainian reporter Yuri Budusov accused Andriy Yermak of betrayal after he reportedly deliberately released information on the operation of Russia. So there is accusation, denial, and counter-accusation between involving the Wagner Group, involving different elements involved in the security, crisscrossing the region. So Budusov further reported that the Turkish intelligence agency MIT was also involved in the operation. The failure of the operation led to firings and criminal proceedings among the Ukrainian security services personnel, according to the Ukrainian intelligence representative using the pseudonym Bogdan. This mentioning of Ukraine, like I said previously, some Ukraine also nationals are involved in the Wagner Group. So this is actually Ukraine as a nation, as an official. Former Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko also claimed in December 2020 that he sanctioned the operation at the end of 2021. So we're talking about the Wagner Group. We are actually looking at the Wagner Group as a function of militarism in terms of the cost of living. And we have also seen that it was the military operation, the war in Ukraine, involving, in this case, the Wagner Group and the Russian troops and all the allies of Russia. And I'm looking at the Wagner Group because they are a private military group, very dynamic, as part of the Russian operation in Ukraine, but also around the world. Nagorno-Karabakh. We're looking at Nagorno-Karabakh, and Leave a comment below if you are from Nagorno-Karabakh. If you know anything about Nagorno-Karabakh, it is being shown here. The Wagner Group is also involved in Nagorno-Karabakh. So as we look at this material, to try and follow the discussion surrounding militarism in Ukraine and also around the globe, and looking at the case study of the Wagner Group. Several days after Russian media reported that Russian PMCs were ready to fight against Azerbaijan in Nagorno-Karabakh, in Azerbaijan, in Nagorno-Karabakh, a source within the Wagner Group, as well as Russian military analyst Pavel Felgenor, reported Wagner contractors were sent to support armed forces of the partially recognized Republic of Artsakh against Azerbaijan during the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh War SATGM operators. So the Wagner Group are reportedly operational in Nagorno-Karabakh, in Azerbaijan. However, Bellingcat reported that the Wagner Group was not present in Nagorno-Karabakh, pointing to the reserve to the reverse side of the medal RSOT public channel used by Russian PMCs, including Wagner. RSOTM posted 2 images and a song alluding to the possibility of Wagner PMC arriving in Nagorno-Karabakh, but and Bellingcat determined the images were unrelated. So like I said before, whenever the Wagner Group operate in a place, it actually prefers to operate secretly, and if detected, such as seen here in this report involving Nagorno-Karabakh in Azerbaijan, there is a denial excuse me, there's a denial of Wagner Group involvement in the regions they are accused of being involved, and this is characteristical in every area. I have actually looked at the behavior of the Wagner Group. This is their behavior by evidence based on what this material has been showing, and so that is why I've been looking at this material. Following the end of the war, retired military captain Victor Zolobov stated Wagner PMC took a significant role in managing to preserve the territory that remained under Armenian control during the conflict, and was the ones mostly responsible for the Armenians managing to keep control of the town of Shusha for as long as they did before it was ultimately captured by Azerbaijan during the major battle that took place there. Turkey reported that 380 blondes with blue eyes took part in the conflict on the side of Aksha, while the Russian publications put the number of Wagner PMCs who arrived in the region in early November at 500. 300 of these were said to have taken part excuse me 300 of these were said to have taken part in the Battle of Shusha, and a photo of a Wagner PMC apparently taken in front of a church in Shusha during the war appeared on the internet the following month. So this is some of the information evidencing the PMC involvement in this region. And I'm looking at this material, and the Russian news outlet OSN reported the arrival of the PMC was also one of the factors that led to Azerbaijan's halt of their offensive against Nagorno-Karabakh. So that is actually Azerbaijan. Looking at this material to illustrate the Wagner Group, Russian private military operatives who have been actually principal as a force on the Russian front fighting in Ukraine, forming a military outlook which actually facilitated the Ukrainian-Russian war, which also created the cost of living. So I look at the cost of living, I look at militarism, I look at capitalism, I look at globalization. All this material actually relates to these factors, and all these factors are responsible for the cost of living. Burkina Faso is actually in West Africa. And we talk of Burkina Faso, and this material I'm looking at is also claiming that the Wagner Group are in Burkina Faso. So the Wagner Group, by that their prolification, by their prolification, the Wagner Group actually are prolific in their actually intensity. Following in Burkina Faso, following more than 6 years of jihadist insurgency in Burkina Faso, a coup d'etat took place on the 23rd January 2022 last year, with the military deposing President Roch-Marc Christian Kabore, and declaring that the parliament, government, and constitution had been dissolved. This is a military coup in Burkina Faso, in Africa, West Africa, involving the Wagner Group. The coup d'etat was led by Lieutenant Colonel Paul Henry Sandaogo Damiba, and came in response to the government failure to suppress the Islamist insurgency, which has left 2,000 people dead and between 1.4 and 1.5 million displaced. Anger was actually directed towards France, which was providing military support to the government. This is actually a military situation in Burkina Faso, and also in West Africa, and also involving the French. The French also being involved in the civil war in Burkina Faso, in West Africa. The French, and as a country, is actually the French as a country is actually a former colonial ruler of West African state, the West African state of Burkina Faso. Subsequently, it was revealed shortly before the military takeover, Lieutenant Colonel Damiba attempted to persuade President Kabore to engage with the Wagner Group against the Islamist insurgents. So we have the Wagner actually group appearing in the scene in this conflict. In addition, less than 2 weeks before the takeover, the government announced it had thwarted a coup plot, after which it was speculated that the Wagner Group might try to establish itself in Burkina Faso. The coup found significant support in the country, and was followed by protests against France and in support of the takeover, with the protests calling for Russia to intervene. So, in a country like such as Burkina Faso in West Africa, where the French seem to find no love, in a country such as Burkina Faso, the that vacuum is filled by Russia, and Russia being actually the um, the housing pod, the housing machine of the Wagner Group. The United States Department of Defense stated it was aware of allegations that the Wagner Group might have been a force behind the military takeover in Burkina Faso, but could not confirm if they were true. So there's a possibility of the Wagner Group without much evidence. On the 30th September 2022, a new coup d'etat took place that showed Colonel Dabimba being deposed by Captain Ibrahim Traore due to the Miba's inability to contain the jihadist insurgency. According to Traore, he and and other officers had tried to get Dimba to refocus on the rebellion, but eventually opted to overthrow him as its ambitions were diverging away from what we set out to do. Only goodness know the detail of that report. There is certainly disagreement within the coup plotters and the new masters of Burkina Faso, and there was another coup, a proliferation of military coup. And somewhere along the wings, there is the Wagner Group, either in on site or actually out of sight, but this a hair of Russia presence in such places. Some suspected Traore of having a connection with Wagner Group. So this is actually more of suspicion. They probably actually, if they were there, and I will be surprised if they are not. There's a pattern involving other countries in the north, west, and central and South Africa, involving the Wagner Group, as I've actually pointed in the other videos. The government of Ghana publicly alleged that Traore began collaborating with the Wagner Group following the coup, enlisting the mercenaries against the jihadist rebels. So the incidence of the Wagner Group in Africa is quite widespread and quite known actually. And the purpose of this material is actually to illustrate the existence of the Wagner Group as a power in Russia, a military power in Russia, and also the dynamic military forces around the world, including Ukraine. So, according to Ghana's president, the ruling junta allocated a mine to the Wagner Group as a form of payment for its deployment, which was denied by Burkina Faso's mines minister. Like I showed in the previous video, I said payment to rebels, especially in Africa, to the Wagner Group, especially in Africa, is mostly in kind in terms of minerals and other wealth, which the Russia would be happy to control in Africa. Actually, the primary motive for Russia being involved in Africa is actually not the Wagner Group and the money they want. The money is a bonus. What they actually after is the military controlling the minerals in Africa. In as much as the Wagner Group are actually recorded in this material, it is most likely that most of the developing powers, including in the West, Russia are probably representing the East. Most of developed countries are actually looking to Africa for resources. In late January 2023, this year, the ruling junta demanded France withdraw its troops, numbering between 200 and 400 special forces members, from Burkina Faso after battling the jihadists for years. France agreed. We are stopping this video here. Thank you for watching. Next time we are going to look at Serbia and the Wagner Group in terms of the cost of living. Uh, um, 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 Subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and support it by sharing and by subscribing. Thank you. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye bye.